Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Norries podcast. As always, I am joined by my good friend Timmy Lang.
Hi everyone.
And this week we have, he's not just a Norrie, he's from Knockett. Chris Kent. How's the form, Chris?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming down to meet us. Unfortunately, we're not in Churchfield
I know,
anymore, but socially distanced. You can't reach me, I can't reach you. But at least we can continue in this beautiful space. Thanks again to Sharon O'Donoghue, Media Life. We've transformed the studio. Fuck you, Logan Paul. And what's the other fool? Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan,
Even though we got pure inspired by the two of them. But yeah, we're doing it for ourselves. But how's the form with you, boy? What's the crack?
Good, yeah. It's nice to be back in Ireland and doing things like this, like, you know.
Yeah, and like you're well known, obviously, around where we're from and beyond. But maybe a lot of people listening won't know you.
Yeah.
Who are you? Where are you from? And what was the crack for you growing up? And how did you get into doing what you're doing today?
I'm Chris Kent. I'm a comedian from Knocknaheeny and very unlikely fella to go into comedy. Very introverted as a kid, as a teenager even. And I just started doing it. Like I tell you, Des Bishop did a show in our
Joy in the Hood.
Yeah. And I knew people on it, and then I went and I watched them, right? And it blew my mind because I'd never seen normal people do comedy. It didn't even occur to me that normal people would do it. And I mean normal people, I mean like all I knew of before that was Tommy Tiernan or Des Bishop or David O'Doherty. I didn't even know much about comedy really. But I just had an itch as soon as I saw them doing
There's no comedians from up around where we're from, so there's not?
No, not really. Well, there is loads of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's a comedian.
They need a few drinks, you know.
Yeah. Oh, there's like fucking hell.
We have the best comedians, but I suppose none what you see on telly.
No, there wasn't, no. But I just said, fuck it, I'll give it a go, like, you know.
Fucking hell. I remember when his Bishop was in Knocknaheeny at the time, it was cool for people, people will be familiar with it. He was in all the nice areas. He was in Ballymun, Moyross, and Knocknaheeny.
Yeah.
So, and he was up in Kilmore Road, up by Foley's shop.
He was, yeah.
And it was a big thing at the time.
It was.
And I remember they done a show, was it in St. Vincent's?
Yeah, I was at it.
Yeah.
I went to watch it.
What's that man from the back road, Pat?
Pat O'Shea did it, Jamie O'Shea did it, Kevin Goldsmith did it.
That's right, yeah.
Who else did I know? There was a young fella called Cheddar or something.
It was a successful situation, wasn't it?
It was very good. Yeah.
Did everybody from the show go on to be key comedians and stuff?
A lot of them did, yeah, but I don't think there's many of them doing it now, like, you know. I think Eric and Willa from Dublin, I could be wrong now, but I think they're the only two still doing it. Eric Lawler and Willa White from Ballymun. They're the only two still on the circuit, as far as I'm aware. And
brilliant.
I did it for years with those lads, though. Like, you know, I went into pubs in town and watched them, and I was like, Tommy Tiernan, no one like that inspired me. It was someone like that I'd never heard of getting up trying to do comedy. Whether they were good or bad, it was very inspiring to me. Going, look at them, Jesus Christ! And I had a little itch, you know.
Yeah, well, that's kind of similar to what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
In terms of getting people out of the drugs and all that madness, is like, we're not anything special, or we're not on the television. We're actually just normal fellas in the community that were able to do it.
Yeah.
And it's similar.
That's
like,
more inspiring than anything, I think.
Exactly, because you know them,
Yeah.
like, and it's from the area, and fucking hell, if you can be a comedian, I can be a comedian. If Timmy can be a construction manager, I can be, and whatever, you know. So it's great. So you got inspired there, and how did it manifest itself? How did it?
So you start off, comedy is like, someone will give you 5 minutes, like in a little club, you know. And so I was doing it for a hobby there for a good while, secretly dreaming like I'd love to do this for a living, you know. That's what I was genuine. I was afraid to tell anyone, but I was going, I'd love to do this for my full-time job, like, you know. And my dream came true because I lost my job really more than getting a break in comedy. The crash happened there in 2007 or whatever, was it, 2008? Right. And I lost my job as an electrician, and at that time I was just starting to make a small bit of money off comedy. So I stopped. I couldn't get work. I was looking for work everywhere, and I couldn't get any electrical work. Yeah. And then I just started focusing on comedy, and you know, you start off doing 5 minutes, like you'd have to drive to Belfast to do 10 minutes for no money. And I'd loved it. I never even had an issue with it. Drove up to Derry and drove back in the same night. Just to do 5 minutes in front of a crowd.
It says some buzz, is it?
And you'd be buzzing the whole way back, like, depending on, and even if it doesn't go well, it's still like, you can't wait to do it again, to right the wrong, you know?
I suppose you're after overcoming that fear as well.
Yeah.
Getting up on stage.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, I still would have been introverted, and I still am to a certain extent around people, like, just in general. But on stage, I couldn't, I'm very relaxed now.
Because you're a comedian and you're so outgoing on stage, as you said.
Yeah.
Do you think when you meet people off stage, do they expect you to behave in a certain way, but you're not like that off stage?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. That's a dose for any comedian. And someone says, "Tell us a joke. You're funny. You're this."
Yeah.
And it's like they're fucking putting you on the spot somewhere, like in work or outside a church or something. You're like, "What the fuck do you really think is going to happen?"
It's not that funny at all.
I'm not going to just start going, "All right, yeah." So anyway, I'm gonna fucking take a microphone out of my pocket.
I know, yeah.
Or a joke book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hold on a second there now. Google it, like. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Not too much, but most people understand then. And then you get the odd people who are into comedy and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm, this comedian and that comedian, like,
Yeah, because it's an act and you
Yeah.
have to get into the zone. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
a
it's
little bit,
performance and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
The conditions have to be right in that.
Yeah, exactly. The conditions definitely have to be right. It's very delicate for
Yeah.
comedy to be like, that was a banging show now, that was. Everything has to be fall in.
And does it take a lot of preparation? Do you write your material?
I do, yeah, I write everything. So I write, you were at that one of the shows there now, that would have been my 7th show, I think. So I had 7 hours, like, the last couple of years, like, from,
Yeah.
like I said, you start off in 5 minutes. And back then I wasn't really writing everything. I don't know what I was doing in the beginning. I was terrible, like. But you have a bit of delusion there that you need to keep going,
Yeah.
And I got a small bit better and a small bit better. And then I was starting to kind of get, bumped up, like. You get 5, then you get 10, then you get 15. Then someone might hand you €20. And you're like, fucking hell, I'm making a bit of money here now, like.
Yeah. You're professional.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. No, don't tell the doll. But, someone else did anyway. That's another story. When I was doing fuck all, really, someone reported me for being on social welfare. And they saw me do a gig somewhere, like, and they were like, "Oh, I'll fucking..."
Do you get begrudges?
Yeah, well, obviously you do. Like, I don't know who that person was, but...
We're a great country for begrudging people.
Yeah.
But, coming from an area where it's not typical to do what you're doing,
Yeah.
did you ever, in the early days, come across people like, what the fuck are you doing, boy? Or was your friends ever sceptical or ever kind of put off it?
I hid it very well, like, because I didn't even tell people I was doing comedy for a very long time. As a matter of fact, even when I was doing it, I wasn't telling people. When I was on the telly and everything, I didn't even tell my mother. And she texted me and goes, "Were you on the fucking telly last night?" And I was like, "I was." But I never told her. I was doing something like the Craig Doyle show, but I was just afraid of it going wrong, so I didn't bother telling anyone. And then there was like, "We saw Christopher on the telly," and she was like, "What?" Yeah. And then, I don't know about begrudges. I think Ireland is, and Cork especially, well, I know now from... they're more supportive than there are begrudgers, really. Yeah. I learned that lately,
And when you're putting yourself out there in the public eye, you will get people that will try and take it down. But that's a trade-off for all the positive feedback you get too.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
What was the highlight of your comedy career so far?
So far? I'd say the Everyman last year. I sold out the Everyman in Cork last year for the first time. And that was unbelievable buzz. And you could really feel the love in the room, like, I could genuinely, because I did it the year before and it nearly sold out. It was about 100 off or something. And I never imagined that in my life. It was like
capacity
650 people. And
brilliant.
I know, like I did, like the year before I got like 500 in or something, And the year before that, I did, I think, Crane Lane, which is about 100. And the year before that, I did a small room, the Opera House, which was like 80. And they all sold out. But then they saw me opening for someone in the Everyman, and I was looking for a new venue, slightly bigger. And the people in the Everyman were like, "Do the main room." And I was like, not a chance. I was really afraid of... I was mortified. I was going, fuck it, if no one turns up, it's going to be a disaster, But then my agent in Dublin was like, "Look, just do it, and we'll do the stalls downstairs, right? We'll just open the stalls. And we won't sell any tickets upstairs. It's 300 people downstairs or whatever. You're already selling 100. If they're half full, it'll be great." And then it just, it just started snowballing a small bit. And the following year it sold out, and I filmed it and put it on RT. It's on the RT player there. Yeah. But I'd say There's a few tough
and
ones.
the Everyman as well is such a beautiful venue with the history behind it, and it's a landmark in Cork. Like it's, there's so much history attached to that venue. We got a small bit of a gig there with 100 guests. But lockdown fucked it up. But we got a smaller one then in the Kino.
Oh yeah,
40,
and that got locked as well.
We sold that out in an hour. 40 people.
But you know, for comedians, you know, when they overcome that anxiety on stage, do they actually get better, Chris? You know, as they get more confident,
100%.
Do their kind of comedy act get better?
Yeah, even the ones that are shit at it. Even the ones that I don't think are, like, maybe subjective, no, like, but people that are not funny at all, you can see them getting better at doing it.
Yeah.
Everything. Stage presence, holding the mic, not stuttering or getting dry mouth or anything like that, you know.
And that's just from being up there.
Being up there and
5,
up there,
10, 20 times.
When I started doing it, like, I would physically throw up before it. Sometimes I can remember going to gigs in Galway and I'd be on my way to the venue and I didn't know how to control these nerves, like, and I would physically get sick, like. And my wife was with me at the time. She was like, "Fuck all right." But I'd do the gig then and then be a massive high, like, you know, afterwards. But down through the years, I got less and less nervous. I still get nerves the odd time, and I think that's good. Get a few nerves, like, you know. But not really at all. I have no gigs at all, really. I'd be like happy to jump on anywhere, like whether it's the roughest looking gig ever or the best looking gig ever. I'd be like, I'll go for it. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
You do badly, you die in your hole, and you get a story out of it. That's you get a story, a funny story about how they hated you in this place, you know.
Just every year we go on the walk, you know. There's a big group of us. We go, and there's two or three fellas, like, they're right comedy acts. Like, we has a great crack as we go camping as well. And Tommy's one of them.
And Caleb.
Brother and Caleb.
Oh yeah, they're pretty funny. Yeah.
You'd be on your walk and you'd be listening to the two of these. They'd be telling stories from when we were all using and drinking around the place and whatever. They laugh that we have.
Oh yeah. I'd say so.
Like, my point is guys like that, if they ever took up comedy, they'd be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, they'd be unreal at it.
You know. So.
But I wonder, would a naturally funny man make a good comedian? Does it translate, or is there more to it?
No, I think they do. Yeah, I think it's a template for a very funny bit. Like most of the bits I had down through the years, when the funny story is there already. If that's there already, the less you have to do to it, the funnier it is.
You're just fine tuning how you.
Yeah, the less you have to do to it. All you're doing is working out the timing and working out how you're going to say it, and. You know? Yeah. Like, I'm kind of fortunate enough. Like, I would have been introverted, but I've been always very observant of things going on around me. Like, my mum and dad are fucking hilarious. My brother, everyone in Knocknaheeny, but I've been quietly watching them. And going, taking it all in, and taking an angle on it, and then writing it down on the page, and going and saying it out loud, like, you know? Yeah. I say I was introverted now, but between a small group of friends, I'd have been happy to be funny, and you know, but I definitely wouldn't have been a class clown or anything like that.
From the gig we were at in the Kino.
Oh yeah.
I thought one of the funniest bits there was when you spoke about when your parents come in at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and they call, "Come on,
chips.
down for the chips!
Come
on!"
I could totally relate with that. Like, we're the only country in Ireland or country in the world where you get woken up for chips.
Yeah.
At 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, come down for the chips. And
I thought that was hilarious. Even as a kid, like, I was like, this is mental. Like, what are you doing waking us up? Like,
when you said it brought back a lot of memories, you know.
But you'd never think of it. And then when he said it, you were like, fucking hell, that was totally the case in my house too.
I don't know. I think I thought about it because I have kids now, and they're so health is such a conscious thing. And then I started just reflecting on my own childhood, and I was like, oh, this wasn't conscious at all.
The thought of actually doing what your parents done, I was like, that would not happen today.
No, you're trying to be as quiet as you can so they don't wake up.
I was at Tommy Tiernan down at the Marquee in 2018 now, I suppose, 2019 maybe, and he got a heckler.
Oh yeah.
He dealt with it well. No, he could have went bad on her.
Right.
She was langers drunk, and she was a pity.
Yeah.
She gave him a lot. She made it very difficult for him.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I've been there. Get it? I do get it, and it's fucking, honest to God, it's a disaster. It can be really. See, a heckler is one thing, right? A heckler interacts, and you can respond. Someone that's drunk just keeps interrupting, they don't even know they're interrupting.
That was the case here.
You can't put them down. You can put them down once or twice and get a laugh.
Yeah.
And then they get offended, and then they try and come back at you. And they're like, I'm going to get him now, Sometimes security deal with it.
Well, that was what I was going to say there.
Yeah.
In this case, right, this woman kept on interrupting him. And she was lying, I was drunk now.
Yeah.
Security needed to come over and take her out, but they didn't. And they left her there for the whole show. And Tommy, you could see Tommy, he's getting into different jokes and different stories.
And he's always distracted
it's always
by her.
in his head that she's
Yeah.
going to kick off any minute now.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, that's one fucking hard job.
It's the worst thing of it that can happen in a gig. It's like, you cannot move on because out of your corner of your eye, you're like, there they are now. They're fucking talking to their friend now. They're on their phone now. And any time you're not doing anything, you need to be 100% in a bit of comedy. You need to be 100% in there telling the story. Otherwise, it's not as efficient, it's not as good.
Yeah.
I've had problems with it. Some venues are much better than others. Some venues, the bouncers are probably a bit too aggressive, and they'll come over and fucking shove a fella, and he'll be like, he barely opened his mouth, And other venues are brilliant at it. Like, there are venues there in Scotland called the Stand Comedy Club, and you go down the stairs, and they're like, everywhere it's like, don't talk when the acts are on. It's like, and the person on the door taking your tickets is like, don't be talking during the show. And then another person, and there's no big bouncer. It's like one of the bar staff will go over and kind of whisper, look lads, you have 2 more warnings now and you'll have to go, And it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's the best way to
all
do it.
the comedians love gigging there because it's so well dealt with,
Yeah.
But having to deal with it yourself, I've had to deal with it myself in rooms where there was no security at all, and it got borderline aggressive once or twice with people with me, and that's fucking fucked.
Yeah, that's
fucked. Because I'm there trying to make the crowd laugh, but there's a fella or a girl literally trying to fight me, like, and I'm like, one half of my body is like, am I going to be dodging a fucking punch here? And the other part of me is like, trying to make the crowd laugh.
I was only thinking that there while you were saying it.
It's hard,
when you have someone giving you shit.
Yeah.
And out in the audience, and you're trying to deal with them and also make everybody laugh at the same time. That's a tough thing to do.
You've aggression fighting something else in yourself, and you're like,
And because you're a funny man, they think, oh, we slag the fuck or we make life difficult for him now.
See, people don't get
it. But then you knock him spark out in another setting.
Yeah, people don't get it, and it's like also, what I'm always unbelievably conscious of is when it starts annoying other people. That's when it starts to bother me. So that's when I mean make judgments, right? I'd go, if there was a fella kind of chatting now and I could barely hear him, and I was in a good flow and the show was going well, I'm like, it's not worth interrupting the show now to find out he's just explaining something to his buddy about the show. But it's when they're constantly chatting, and then you can see people around them going, fucking hell, that starts to wreck my head then. So then I'll go, sorry, you're annoying the people around you there, or if they heckle, try and be funnier than them. And if you're not, you just say fair play, and then but I've had to get people thrown out of my gigs, and it's like
nightmare.
On my own, you kind of have to almost get the crowd to do it for you. I remember it happened in Edinburgh there one year. There was 6 young ones from north of Ireland, right? And they were just hammered straight away. I was looking through the curtain, and I was going out, and I was like, fucking hell, they're fucking... And my show was a half hour in the day, and I was like, nah, they're going to be... I just knew straight away they're going to be hard work, they were chatting and... Yeah,
I was on the Two Johnnies?
Oh, yeah,
I was on their podcast there a few months ago, I know. But the same week, they had a show on the TV. They were over in fucking... RT paid for them to go to Australia or LA.
America, wasn't it?
America, yeah. But they were doing this gig. They said we were doing this gig, right, on fucking 12:30 on a Sunday afternoon in a pub with a lot of Yanks sitting down eating their lunch. And we're telling our GA jokes, and there was nobody getting it. He said there was 2-3 Irish fellas down the back of Langers, and that's what kept us going. He says, but sometimes you have to go in, because they didn't get to decide where they were going. They were told where they were going, and it didn't fit with what they were doing. But you're not going to fucking refuse RT. You're not giving your own TV show, But when the crowd didn't get in, I'd say it can be very hard to keep going, And
it is.
It can be very disheartening.
It is, but what I started doing, I'm doing comedy about 15 years now, and I used to take them things very personally. And I'd be all right now, to be fair. I'd only have a couple of war stories, and I'd have a couple of funny ones as well. That went so bad, it's fucking hilarious. Not when it's happening, but afterwards, I'm like that. I'd be telling other comedians about how bad I was doing, And I was just like, this was fucking so bad. Like, I was dying on my arse. Like, no one laughing.
Yeah.
Staring at me.
Tumbleweed.
Yeah, and I was like, I was very hard on myself because I did a gig one night in Dublin now that was about 30 people there. And there was a big crowd in. And they didn't have very much English. And I was like, what could you do with that anyway? It's like, there's about 9 people here and the rest can't understand what I'm saying. Literally.
Yeah, I was going to ask you on that actually, not the language part, but how do you find your humour translate in different cultures?
It seems to be alright. I'm anecdotal, like, I don't really have any strong Irish references. I always did very well in the UK, like, you know. Yeah. I did gigs in England. Obviously, I was living there for 6 years. I did gigs in Australia, the Middle East, America, all over Scandinavia, and never really had an issue. Never had an issue.
That's great.
And always people ask, actually, fucking, do they understand you? And I'm like, do you understand me? We're not having a problem. Yeah. Like, you can understand me perfect. It's always other people that speak English, and you're like, there's no issue here between me and you. Why would there be an issue between...
But
like,
you speak very well anyway. You're very clear-spoken, and you don't have a mad accent.
Yeah, exactly. I speak very slow. But then some people would be like, that's the strongest accent I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, it fucking isn't.
No, definitely not. Go up to Clannick Gardens
exactly, yeah. No, it isn't. Definitely not. I just started speaking slow because I was actually very concerned and very conscious about that. So I went up to Dublin and I was like, I hope people understand me up here. Because when I started comedy, I did speak a lot faster. Yeah. And then I started speaking slower. And then I started telling stories and it kind of lent itself to it. And then I just never sped up. And even in England, sometimes, you know, not just England, but I'd feel like they want a bit of a punchline. And they get a little bit impatient. Yeah. But I'd even just start slowing down more then, just to annoy them. A small bit. I'd be like, I know you want me to get to the punchline and I can get there in another, but I'll actually just add another bit on now to annoy you. Another detail that you don't want. But
and tell me about COVID. COVID has impacted on the arts more than anywhere.
Massively.
What's it like for you and your colleagues and your friends? And
it's a disaster. Honest to God. It's like fucking... So I was doing comedy about 15 years now, I think, since I'm 21. I started doing it full time in 2009. I got back from Australia. I went to Australia for a year in 2008. So I'm doing comedy since 2015, pretty much as a hobby for the first couple of years, but always, like I said, wishing, you know. Got back from Australia in 2008, and got about a month's work electrical and was told there's nothing else there, big crash, looking the whole time. So like I said to you, like I just started from the bottom of comedy, doing 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I wanted to be like one of the best 10-minute acts in the country. When that's all I was given, I was like, I want to be better than any other 10-minute acts. And then when I got to 15 minutes, I was like, I want to be the best one of them. And then I was like, I want to be the best support act. And then I was like, then you headline clubs. And I was like, I want to build myself up and be one of the best headliners and one of the most sought after headliners. And then fucking solo shows. And then it was like, can I even write an hour? And then you do an hour. I was like, I want to be one of the best at my own show. Then you do another one and I had been doing that for 7 years. I'd say, 7. I was on my 7th show or something, 7th hour, like. And then I felt it really building. I felt it like going, this is kind of nice. Like, I did a tour 4 years ago, about 8 shows around Ireland. 2 of them were pulled. The venues weren't great now, like they didn't fucking put up posters, or in one case they weren't even selling tickets, but I was learning the whole time, right? So I had 8 shows. My first tour, then my second tour I had about 14 shows. And my third show I was getting slightly bigger every year. Yeah. And I was writing a new show every year, like, and it takes a lot of work. You go away for a year to write a show. As soon as your show is done, you're like, right, I can't go back to the Everyman with the same hour. You need a brand new hour. Go away and you start writing it. You go up to Edinburgh. That might cost you money, like, you know. And I felt like last year selling out the Everyman, and in 2020 there, it was already nearly sold out.
You were on the cusp of something really big.
Yeah, and Vicar Street in Dublin as well. That was another massive one. That was one of my dreams to play that venue. That was like fucking, I supported comedians up there like Bill Burr and, you know, been on massive builds up there, and I was like, it'd be amazing to do this someday. And I did it, and I have a lot of support in the comedy world. Like from other comedians, they always go, if I fucking share something or do something, everyone jumps on board, and I really feel it and I appreciated it. So all that was happening, and then I was like, this is fucking going great. And I'm moving back to Ireland because the tour was getting bigger. And then COVID happened, and I was like, I was just have to come back from Australia, actually. In January, I went out there for a month to write this show, the Christy Doesn't Live Here one, and brought my family with me, had a fucking brilliant time. Came back, did about 3 weeks of my Irish tour, and I was
on Blind Boys.
I was on Blind Boys podcast over there as well,
yeah.
and it was great, unbelievable. Like, actually, loads of people from that were just at that gig then started coming into my. So I was doing a solo show every day, like I was trying to work it up, you know. Yeah. I was doing loads of gigs actually. I was doing fucking Best of Irish, English, Irish, Scotsman, fucking Best of British and everything. I was like, fuck it, I'll do anything. And I was like joking about that because I was mad into rebel music and everything. And as a teenager, like, and now I was doing Best of British over there. And
it's all about the money.
All about the money. And it was great crack. I used to be like, oh, I'm doing Best of British, and I clearly wasn't British, like. And I'd be opening every night, and they'd be like,
well, they're normally happy to claim our talent.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. I went, I'm not British, like, you know.
And do you know, when you started off, Chris, as a comedian, was there any comedian that you looked at and you wanted to be the same as, or did you just want to be your own act and kind of develop?
I always was in awe of loads of comedians, and I loved, like, Tommy Tiernan, Dylan Moran, there's a few American comedians, and Patrice O'Neill, he's dead now, but he's amazing, right? And there's loads of comedians, but I never wanted to be like anyone. I never thought I can do that or I can do that. That's why I was saying it was the fellas that were open spots and the fellas that never did it in their life inspired me, because I was like, oh fuck it, I don't have to be, because it's a big jump to see Tommy Tiernan and go, I'll do that. Whereas when you see someone going, that's another whatever, like just has a day job and is doing it, it's a lot easier, you know.
If you're watching, like, when you ask Chris that question, I'm thinking, like, who's my favourite comedians, you know? And when I think Eddie Murphy, I just fucking laugh to myself. Eddie Murphy's amazing, like,
unbelievable, like,
just fucking so funny, so good, you know. And it's the years ago now, like, but Eddie Murphy Raw, but I can imagine if you're looking at Eddie Murphy Raw and he's on the stage in Madison Square Gardens with fucking 20,000 people. It's a very unrealistic. So
it's unrealistic.
But when it's brought to your own neighbourhood, then it's like, fucking hell, this is here for me too.
And I just delved in, and I was quietly doing it for a while. I was quietly going, working really hard at it, like I said, writing it, building it up every year. Fucking got a small bit of telly, but I never really got a break. But I could still feel it. I was building the work from live, because I was talking to people after the Everyman or whatever. I talked to people after shows, and they're like, we saw you in City Limits, or we saw you in the Crack House, or we saw you in the Cat Laughs, and they were coming back to see me again and again. And I was just getting comfortable. And then in March, I was on my way back, because I knew the COVID thing was happening, and it wasn't a shock. But in March, we were all kind of thinking, my agent who was booking the shows with me was like, it's probably only going to affect the venues that are over 500. That was the kind of number they were going, all the gigs that are over 500 indoors are going to be pulled, or likely to be pulled. And I was about a week out from the Everyman, 3 weeks out from Vicar Street. And I was like, okay, I kind of anticipated they might be pulled and I'd still be disappointed. But then when it happened and everything went, they were like, there's no point, don't bother coming home. I was like, fuck. Because it was like, I had already spent the money in my head as well. I needed that money for the Everyman and for the Vicar Street. And I'd been a year working and writing the show and promoting the show, and all the hard work was done. I was really enjoying doing the show as well, you know. So it was a big old fucking blow initially. I was like, fuck, that's a disaster. But we didn't know how bad it would be either at the same time. So I was rescheduling gigs for later in the summer, and then it was like, right, that's not going to happen. Then the autumn, and now they're this autumn, please God, you never know. But yeah, for a couple of weeks there, it was a hard hit.
And you're lucky in the sense that you had your electrician trade to fall back on.
I did.
I imagine there's other comedians out there and people in arts that all they have is their talent.
Loads of them.
And they haven't got a secondary source of income.
Loads of my friends. I mean, I'm doing it 15 years. I've good friends that are doing it longer than that, 25 years. It's all they've done. And like me, I solely made my work off live gigs. I didn't do any writing or voiceovers or nothing. I just didn't get them, really. Yeah. That was me. Like, I hung everything on that, which was a bad thing in a way, to be honest. I think I put too much into it as well, comedy down through the years. A little bit too much of me went into it, put all my self-worth into it, and, you know, at times didn't enjoy something I fucking loved doing at all, at all. I enjoyed the gigs, but it was like the money pressure was always a little bit like, bollocks, this is a fucking load of shit, you know.
Do you ever think about starting your own podcast, or maybe doing it online, kind of Insta stuff? Or
yeah, definitely, 100%. I was thinking about a podcast for a long time. I had been doing a podcast with a friend of mine who sadly passed away about a year and a half ago in a car crash. So we were doing something together. It was a lovely man called Billy Anderson. He was an American comedian, very, very funny, like, you know. But sadly, he passed away. And so I've always been trying to fucking get something else out there. But for me, though, I was always very focused on comedy. I was like, stand-up is where it's at. I'll do a new hour every year. I'll build it up slowly. My plan was kind of an organic route, but it was working, like. So I thought, it's working, and why not, like, you know, keep going with it. Yeah. But looking back now, I definitely put way too much into it. I fucking hung everything on it. And I was like, when things were going bad or when I didn't get something, I took it very badly, like, you know. But like you said, I had a trade to fall back on, which I never thought I would. Not that I didn't want to, but it just never... Like, I wrote jokes about it, like, being an electrician.
You can't foresee a pandemic.
No, you can't really, to be fair. Can't really, to be fair. And I used to have material about my dad saying, when I got the job, take it. And then I took it. You'll never be out of work. And then I'd be like, here I am now in a comedy club with a microphone. And I did jokes like that for years, like, you know, had a great time. But he was right. He was actually right, because I'm back working now. We pushed on. We said we moved back to Ireland anyway, pandemic or no pandemic. Didn't look like the gigs were coming up at all. And it was a bit of a different, like, I envisaged myself moving back to Ireland, touring full time, flying to England 7 or 8 times a year, going to Australia, do my other little gigs. But we moved back to Ireland, and me and my wife didn't have a job. Like, we were living in my mum's house in 1 bedroom with our kids, like, and I was like, this is not how I fucking imagined it at all. Yeah. And I did have the trade to fall back on, but for a while, for a couple of months, I didn't think I was going to get work. Yeah. Because there's a 12-year gap in my CV where I haven't done any electrical work. And it's very hard to explain comedy. Yeah. It is a job, but people just go, he tells jokes for a living. But it's not. It's like, you tell jokes.
It's not a real job like they might.
That's what they think. That's what they think. But there's a lot of, you tell jokes, you have to do your fucking admin, there's an awful lot of travelling. You could be driving fucking 20,000 miles a year, like. You could be in an airport every second week. You could be on a train, you have to write a show, to do all your tax returns, you have to do your website. You're probably getting an idea about doing this even.
Yeah, I know.
You have to do your poster designs, you have to do, even submitting these things, sometimes it could be a day just submitting your show to a festival. Yeah. You know, there'd be a whole day's work in it.
And if things go well, there's a day's work in it. And if there's complications, there's more.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's even the writing of the material, like the Everyman's a big one, you go, there's a big payday there. But before that, there's a year of writing. There's a year of, like, you wouldn't be writing every day now, all day. But like when I used to mind my kids during the day, and my wife would have a day job. So when the kids were napping, I'd be writing for an hour or doing a little bit. Then you get the train into London and you'll be trying out your little 5 minutes material. This is all for nothing, like, back out again and slowly putting the hour together for the Everyman the next year. But you can't go into that much detail on a CV, really. You're like, I did comedy for 12 years professionally. And when I was in my mum's house, there was no one getting back to me at all from any fucking companies. And I was like, this isn't going to happen. Like, I'm not going to get any work. But luckily, I got onto a fella, and between the jigs and the reels, like between knowing people and knowing someone that was in the company that I did my time with, I eventually got back in there, like, and I was petrified, absolutely petrified.
What was it like going back onto a site after 12 years?
Oh, fucking, I didn't sleep at all. The night before, I actually literally couldn't sleep. I mean, I wasn't even that nervous when I did my first day of work. I wasn't even that nervous, like. I was like, you know, now my first day's work was in Gormanstown, County Meath. I got my electrical apprenticeship. I was working in the English market, and I got my job anyway, and they said, oh, you're starting on Monday, and I was like, brilliant. And this is like in the year 2000. They're like, where is it? And I was like, it's in Gormanstown, County Meath. And I was like, fuck it. Gormanstown, County Meath. No motorways, no or anything. And I don't know how this happened, but my mother was delighted I got a trade, like, you know, so... And the Monday morning, I was supposed to meet a fella in Douglas, 4 o'clock in the morning, get in his car, drive to Gormston, come to meet. And somehow I had a Nokia 5210, which never goes dead. Somehow it went dead during the night. My alarm didn't go off. And my mother burst into the room going, you fucking missed your fucking lift. And I turned it on, I'd load of missed calls.
For fuck's sake.
So I had to end up getting a train to Dublin and then a train from Connolly as well up to Duleek or something like that, and then a bus, and I was late by about 4 hours.
For fuck's sake.
And I was a scrawny little young fella, like I was like a little fucking twig, and I had big massive fucking safety boots on, and I had a retainer for keeping my teeth together like that, like, you know. They were looking at me going, I'm not even going to give him a hard time, to be honest. He's grand. He's grand. You're late. And I was a wiry little fucker. Like I used to box and everything, and that's why I had.
I remember you boxing and running and stuff around that.
Yeah, love running. Still love running. But even that day, I felt more nervous going back as a grown man, and I didn't think I would be, but I was fucking petrified going onto that building site. Because in my head, I was like, "Fuck! What if you forgot something?" And in my head, I thought I had to know everything about electricity and everything about everything in case I was asked to do anything. Forgetting that there's plenty of tradesmen that go, I never done it before,
I know.
This is my first time doing it. But so for a couple of weeks, actually, I'd say even when I was in the Kino doing that gig, it was all I could think about was work and what I'm going to do next now in the job. I couldn't even sleep at night, even when I was home. And it was going absolutely fine. Yeah. There was nothing wrong. I was going, I'll go there now and I'll do that. And I think it was from 15 years of being self-employed and having to do absolutely everything and think, you know.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Big time, because I would have been out of the trade as well. Last time I picked up a hammer really was back in 2007 or 8. And then to be away from it for so long and go back into tools then in late 2014.
Yeah.
After being away from it for maybe 6 or 7 years, you know, that little bit of confidence isn't there anymore.
It's not there at all, no.
And you're waiting for someone to say, come here, what are you? You're not an electrician or you're not an accountant at all, you know?
Nah, and there's no one against you, but in your own head you're like...
Perfectionist, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. And I was like... And it was all very weird because before I even got the job, I had to do the safe pass and all that, so I was like putting money into it and going, I don't even know if I'm going to get something. And then the fella up in the safe pass... I walked up to the safe pass and he was like, Chris Kent. And I was like, yeah. I was like, how do you know? Like, I didn't say my name or anything yet. He was like, oh, you're a comedian. And he was asking me for a selfie. And I knew 15 years.
Selfie?
I'm on 15 years doing stand-up comedy and I don't think I've ever got asked for a selfie in my life. And next thing, I fucking comedy collapses and I'm doing a safe pass and there's a fella asking me for a selfie. And I'm going, I'm never going to do comedy again. And this fella's asking me for fucking selfies.
Oh, for fuck's
And then
sake.
it was like, on the building site then, it was like, everyone was sound. There was one or two fellas going to tell us a joke kind of thing. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. But no, I fucking love it. Genuinely, it took me a couple of weeks to get back into it. But like I said to you before, the comedy completely took over my life. There was no time, I always thought about comedy. And even when the most shit thing was happening, horrible shit happening, I'd be like mining it for, even if I wasn't actively writing it down on paper, it would be going into my head, moving around going,
there's like, a joke here somewhere.
Oh yeah, I remember our honeymoon was falling to shit. It was in pieces. There was stuff going wrong the whole time. And we were like furious, but in the back of my head I was going, this is going to be very good. It was a good show in this, I'd say. But like, it was good, you know, I think it was good to have that break. This is the longest I've gone not thinking of comedy.
So you have your 9 to 5.
Yeah, my 9 to 5
and
now.
I'd say your family are happy with it, like
delighted,
that as well.
Absolutely delighted. And it was a big adjustment, but they're fucking delighted. And I'm very fortunate to have it to fall back on. But like before that, 15 years, I'd say when my kids were born and when I got married, there was probably a day or a couple of hours where I didn't think of comedy or it wasn't in my mind, you know. And it's good now to step back and go, oh God, you weren't... That wasn't great at all. It wasn't healthy at all. Like,
and all your family want is your time.
That's all.
You know, that's
exactly.
all they want. They don't care about awards you get or the capacities you sell out or tickets you've sold or shows you're writing. All they want is Chris, daddy, and husband, and that's what matters
they
really.
They don't give a shit.
And they'll be the first to tell you.
They fucking will.
We have a lot of people from Australia. I watched the podcast actually. You said you emigrated in 2007, 2008. Like a lot of people from Cork.
Couldn't wait to get over there.
And there's a lot of people still there.
Yeah, there is,
They're in their mid-30s now, early to mid-30s now, and they like listening to the podcast just because the Cork accent is
Yeah.
a taste of home. So hi to everybody in Australia.
Yeah, hello.
I'm sure you're well known down there. Do you ever think about going back there? They seem to be doing well with COVID.
Yeah, I'd love to go back, but for me, it's just a tiny bit too far from family, you know, especially with kids now and everything.
Yeah.
That was what I struggled with in England. It was like, even in England, when I was touring in Ireland, like, I was fucking going to the airport, picking my mum up. She was coming over to babysit the kids. And then I was fucking flying back to Ireland, and I was missing my mum. I was seeing my mum for about a half an hour or whatever, you know. But we did get that month in Australia there in January, and it was brilliant. Totally different. Like, me and Neve did it in 2007, and backpacker thing. Great life, like fucking drinking, backpacking around Australia. Had the time of our lives, like. Worked as an electrician there in Sydney, travelled all around it, worked as an electrician in Perth, save up a bit of money, travel up the other coast, and went to New Zealand and Asia on the way home. Had a fucking ball. And some of my friends are still out there now that went out then.
Yeah.
Some of my friends from Cork and some of my friends from Dublin.
Yeah, hopefully they're listening.
Yeah, I met them actually. I met a few of them out there in January. It was great to catch up with them.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen them since.
Yeah, that's great. What was it like doing the Blind Boy podcast?
It was good. It was brilliant actually, yeah. I was good. I was a big fan of that as well, and I was going, fuck it, I'm delighted now to get that. But I'd say the only thing is, it's in front. It was like 300 people there, like, you know. He's very popular, like.
He is, yeah, and I like him too. And like, I've been listening to Blind Boy since they were doing the fucking prank phone
Same,
calls.
yeah. On MySpace, I used to watch them on
yeah.
MySpace. My friend showed me their page, and it was like all their 4 or 5 of their songs and their prank calls were on there as well.
Yeah.
And I was like a big fan of his, and I met him a couple of times since, so I know him, like.
Yeah.
And not extremely well, but I know him well enough.
I have this. I'd love to go on the podcast.
You'd be brilliant. I'd love to hear you on it. Yeah, you answer me.
He's very. I often think if I was on his podcast now, especially a live one, because if sometimes I can get a small bit intellectual, but I know I get lost with him because he's so fucking intelligent.
That's what I was nervous about.
You get lost, wouldn't you?
You can imagine me going on him so if James would get lost with him.
But I was really nervous about that because I don't mind listening to that, right? I love sitting back listening to yourself and listening to Blind Boy and fucking. But when it comes to engaging with it, I wasn't great at school nor anything with it. It's just like I wouldn't have the confidence in myself to articulate and keep up, you know. Even though I still have this to this day, even though I know the answer to something and I know what it is, I'm afraid sometimes to give it. In case I'm wrong, or chirp in case I make a fool of myself. Even with this, you know.
You should be kicking yourself then
I
when
know.
the answer comes out and you know it, but you never said it.
Yeah, but I'm like, why the fuck was I just, you know?
Yeah.
So the angle I took on that now was he took me on and he had a couple of questions from Twitter or whatever, and they kind of related to my obviously people who know me asked him about this and ask him about that. And as soon as I got a couple of laughs, I relaxed.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't have been the most interesting podcast now, but it's very funny.
Yeah.
I was a whore for the laughter then. I was just like, that's the angle I'm playing now. I couldn't give a fuck about anything else. And honest to God, it was the most crack, like, and I really appreciate him having me on. And loads of people that were at the podcast then came to all my shows subsequently because of that.
Yeah.
And I could tell straight away. When I walked out in Australia, like, and I was doing my shows during the day, I was like, these are all from the Blind Boy podcast.
Yeah. But isn't that the beauty about, like, linking in with other artists? Like, when we appear on other people's podcasts, and when I was on the Tommy Tierney show, having you here now, like, there's going to be, you're going to get more interest from people that may have not heard you, but listen to us.
Exactly.
And likewise, for your followers are going, oh, Chris's podcast, let's watch this, or who's the two Norries, and it's great that we can all kind of grow from each other, you know?
It is, definitely.
What's the plans for the future, let's say, in a perfect world?
In a perfect world.
No COVID. Would you like to be back full swing into the comedy?
Being honest, I like having the job now, and in a perfect world, right? And I thought this before any pandemic. So last year when I was touring, I was talking to a fella. He was doing a few minutes before me down in Clonakilty, right? And I said, what I'd love to do, to be honest, is I'd love to move back to Ireland and do a bit of casual electrical work with a fella 2 or 3 days a week, and then pick and choose the gigs I want to do. Because I had to do every gig under the sun, really. And gigs they didn't pay that well, but I was like, fuck it, I have to do them because this is all I'm dependent on. And I didn't enjoy them, and I'd be spending weekends away from my family and you know, somewhere in the north of England, or, you know, and I didn't enjoy them particularly. So my dream back then was like, if I had a little bit of a cushion, if I was doing my electrical work 2 or 3 days a week and then gigging the rest of the time, that would be my ideal situation. And I think it still is. But I'm more full-time now, electrical. I can easily do comedy Fridays and Saturday nights. I did it before Christmas. I hopped in the car after work. I was in fucking Wexford at fucking 6:30. I had time for food and then the gig, and I drove home, and it was grand.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to hold on to the gig, hold on to the electrical work, pick the tour back up, and do my show in all the venues where it was cancelled. I'd love to reschedule all them, add another couple in, and go back to England and do the gigs I enjoy at the weekends. There's a few ones I really love, and in Scotland, and build more shows, write another show for the following year, maybe do a podcast, maybe write something other than stand-up. Like, I'm toying with the idea of, I don't know how to write scripts or anything like that, but I'm toying with I have the ideas for it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, well, look, best of luck with all that.
Thanks a million.
We'll be cheering you on from the sidelines and from the audience when we can.
Yeah.
Anything you want to close off, Tim?
No, good, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed listening to you. I've often
Nice
heard you. I know your brother well.
Oh, Anthony, yeah.
I know him well.
I know him well myself.
He's a nice guy. Yeah.
But it's great to have somebody from Knocknaheeny on the podcast first and foremost, but also kind of being a champion of the area.
I love it.
A very positive role model you are for people in the area, you know. And I say you break a lot of stereotypes for people when you meet them, because sometimes people have the idea, he's from Knocknaheeny, he's meant to be tough.
That's the thing,
you know,
and that's
not that you're not tough.
No, but I know what
saying,
you mean.
The image.
Fucking, and I have jokes about it, and I never would shit on an area. I hate it when an act goes, I'm from Buzz area, right? Mind your handbags. That drives me mental.
It's cheap, isn't it?
It's a little bit of like, come on, mate, they're not all. So I did jokes about Knocknaheeny, but it's about people's perception of Knocknaheeny.
Yeah.
So it was people met me and went, we'll be grand, Chris is from Knocknaheeny. I'm like, I don't fucking fight at all.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Do you know that politician turned TV presenter Ivan Yates?
Yeah,
He'd be on TV3, Virgin Media and that, but he quit the Tonight Show anyway, blah, blah, he came back to give him a sports show. He'd Robbie Keane on recently, and he says to Robbie Keane, Robbie, what about that celebration where you do the tumble and then out the guns? He says, is that from your time with guns around Tala? And Robbie was like, the worst joke ever, you know what I mean? Robbie was like, fucking hell. Just because you're from Tala, you know? But Jesus Christ, that's an example.
You get slung with that. And it was weird. The weird thing was, I used to box, and they never said, he used to box. They'd go, he's from Knocknaheeny, is above that. That kind of was like a double insult to me, like, you know? I was like, wasn't that bad at boxing, like.
You've a choice between two people who are going to get a beating off, the professional boxer or the fellow from Knocknaheeny. Give me the boxer.
Anytime.
But look, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Best of luck with everything. And
cheers.
Hi to all Chris's followers. Hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Thanks for having me, lads. Fair play.
See you next week, lads. See you later.